It's obvious I love RVing, that's no secret, but it's not all fun and games. Today I have some maintenance that I need to tackle. Things that are easy to overlook, easy to miss, and maybe even slightly unorthodox for RVing maintenance. So let's not waste any time, let's get right to it. So to start off, why not begin with one that's a little controversial? And this is going to be greasing our fittings on the RV. Let's start off with the one that everybody can agree with. We have wet bolts on the RV that need to be greased for our suspension. This really isn't that difficult to do it. And I probably don't even have to really crawl underneath here. I could reach it from outside, just from behind, clean it up and be able to grease it up. But I'm glad that more RVs are coming with these wet bolts. It's a better way than the bushings that were in there that were kind of standard in the past, but now these wet bolts we're seeing on more and more RVs. Makes it to where we can maintain this without having to take everything apart to replace the bushings. But one thing I do want to probably upgrade is my grease gun. The grease gun's not terrible, but this end that I thought would be great for being able to lock onto these Zerk fittings, it really doesn't lock on all that great as I would like it to. So I've heard good things about the lock-in lube. So if you've had a good experience with something like that that can really lock onto those fittings, not fall off, and get the grease where we want it to, leave a comment down below of one that you absolutely love. So I'm probably going to try out the lock-in lube next. I've heard that it locks on really well. You don't lose or leak any grease around, so it makes this job less messy. So either way, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to be able to just get through this, clean up those fittings, get some fresh grease in them, and finish it up. Maybe it's locking on better than I thought. So now for the controversial part is I am not going to grease that fitting on the wheels for the bearings. I don't like that at all because you're flying blind at best. You don't know if you're making an impact for good or if you're making an impact for making it worse in there. If you're going to blow out the back seals and get grease on your brakes, that's a bad day. When you're squirting the grease in there, you don't really know if it's getting into the part of the bearing that is really going to make a difference. So I forego that. When I do want to put grease in my bearings, I hand pack them. So that's kind of the long and short of that. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this is one that I don't think a lot of people have thought about, and it's the inside of your hose. Now, there's a couple of things that you want to look for. Inside is oftentimes metal on the ends, and if you look in there, sometimes it's soft metal, and if you're in a place that has hard water, you can actually start to deteriorate or build up deposits on the inside of that hose. That'd be something you'd want to address. If it's kind of deteriorating, falling apart, it might be time to replace the hose. But if you look in there, and like this one, pretty dirty and almost looks rusty on the inside. So I'd actually like to sanitize this. This hose still has some life in it. So what I'm going to do is I have a video on sanitizing the freshwater system on your RV, but when you fill up that freshwater tank with that sanitizing solution, it's going to be really simple to get the hose at the same time. What you're going to do is the spray port on your RV, you're going to connect up the hose, put a shutoff at the end. So you just run that sanitizing solution through the hose, turn off the shutoff. So that way, as that solution is sitting there doing its work, it's also doing that work inside of the hose. So that way you don't have to replace your hose, but then you know that you do have a sanitized, clean hose to be able to use. Pretty simple and effective. And really that same thought process can go to our water filter, not necessarily for sanitation, but when was the last time you replaced your filters? If you could take a peek inside and see everything that it's catching, you might want to replace your water filter. One of the things that I like about the Taste Pure water filter is it has a place for you to be able to put the date on when you started using it. That way you know when you want to replace it. You don't have to remember how long did I have it in there? How long have I been using it? Is it time to replace it? You have the date right there. So if you need to gear up for the season, you need to get a new water filter for your RV. As always, I'm going to have the links right down in the description to everything that we're talking about, including the Taste Pure water filter. So let's move on to our next one. Now, this is one that I've been wanting to get to for a really long time because it's really bothered me, and it's our Truma tankless water heater, which we love the water heater. It's our #1 tankless water heater that we have. So I'm going to wrap this up into two tips, actually, two thoughts. But what I want to do here is if you look at it, it is really yellow, really starting to get discolored by the sun. And we know that that's something that we need to do on the RV is treat the plastic so that they don't break down in the sun. And the sprays only go so far. But what I'm going to do here is they actually make these paintable. So I'm going to paint it, which is something that we did when I was contracting in Arizona. If you had plastic on the outside of the house, whether it was plumbing vents or whatever it was, you needed to paint it because that would protect it from the degradation that happens to plastic from the sun. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Now, if this turns out well, I'll probably apply the same strategy to the other plastics on the outside of the RV. The other thing with tankless water heaters is I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they need to be cleaned. We all know on the typical RV water heater, you can get in there and clean it out, wand it out. And if yours has an anode rod, you can replace that. But on a tankless water heater, you should be running a solution of vinegar through it. Now, that's one of the things that I love about the Truma is they make it so easy to be able to decalcify it. You put the tablets in there, let it run its system, and you're done. But on the other tankless water heaters, it's very similar to residential tankless systems where you use a submersible pump with a couple of hoses, 4 gallons of vinegar, and run it through for about an hour and then flush out the vinegar. But I'll leave a link down below to the kit to be able to flush out a tankless system, plus the other couple extra fittings that you'll need that you don't typically need in a residential setting that you need on an RV. But back to painting up the plastic here. What I used here was an auto grade enamel. So I'll definitely keep you posted on how it weathers, how it does, and it should cut down on some of the repetitive maintenance that I have to do on the outside of the RV. But let's get to one that I think could possibly be the most important. Now, this one is maintaining the electrical contacts on your power cord. And this one, I see failures all year round for this because what happens is these contacts get loose, they get dirty, and what happens is they build up heat and then they melt the end of the cord. They melt your surge protector. They melt onto the side of the RV. And so there can be other contributing factors, but if we were to get rid of loose connections and dirty connections, I imagine we would see the vast majority of these disappear. And I'm going to show you the best way to be able to clean this and what you shouldn't use on this. But what happens is you'll have this sitting outside and this is connected to a surge protector or plugged in. And what we have happening here is we have dirt and dust and we have rain and water getting into this connection, and it's going to tarnish those connections over time. You're going to have buildup on there. You're not going to be making a good electrical connection. And then when you have a large draw, this is going to heat up and it's going to melt. You're going to see people trying to figure out why it happened, but it's almost always going to be a loose connection or a dirty connection that needed to be cleaned. We can do something about that dirty connection. So first off, what I like to use is deoxit because it does what it says. It improves connections, removes oxidation, which is what we need to do. It lubricates, seals, and protects, and it's safe for plastic. So it's perfect for this application. And it's not going to collect dust. So spraying this on our contacts for the cable, you can see that just using a rag, it doesn't really get it to look like a new shiny penny again. That's kind of what we're aiming for. I also used a scouring pad on the back of a sponge. You can see that that didn't do a whole lot. Also, the magic eraser didn't do a whole lot as well. But something that does work really good is using an emery cloth. You can get in there, you can scrub it up, and it's going to look like a new shiny penny. The emery cloth is pretty abrasive. If you wanted to go with something a little less abrasive and still really effective, you can go with bronze wool. Steel wool is going to leave all those little fibers all over the place that can rust if you don't clean them up all the way. If you use bronze wool, you can get in there and really shine this thing up. You can really see how big of a difference it makes there. That is going to make a much better electrical connection. And I'll also spray it in this end. I'll spray it into each of those. I'll plug in and unplug a few times, give it some of that abrasion inside of there. And I'll also do it on the port on the side of the RV. That is another place that you can have this corrosion build up and then it melts to the side of the RV and then you have all kinds of problems. Fixing that and loose connections, and we would see the vast majority of melted plugs, surge protectors, and melted outlets on the side of the RV pretty much disappear. Now, the one thing you shouldn't use in this area that is often used is the dielectric grease because it's going to collect that dirt and that grime and build up in this area that you don't want that. So using the deoxit, spraying it on there, wiping it off is going to give you a clean connection in this area. So that's obviously not all the maintenance that we need to do on an RV, but these are just a few that I approach in a slightly different way. So I think that's going to do it for today. I hope this helps you out. I hope you're able to get some maintenance out of this that you can do on your RV to help you enjoy RVing even more. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.